In this video, I will demonstrate how to hand sew a blanket stitch. You'll need a 10 by 10 piece of felt, a pin cushion and pins, a needle threader, needle, thread, and scissors. To start, we're going to prep our piece of felt by folding it in half. And then we'll take our scissors and cut along the fold. And we'll fold it. Now we have two pieces of felt, approximately 5 inches by 10 inches each. Now we'll fold the felt in half again, cutting this one in half, producing two 5 by 5 inch squares of felt. And we'll do the same with this last piece, folding it in half, cutting on the fold, cutting along the fold. We'll stitch around both of these pieces, creating two 5 by 5 inch squares. Next, I will prepare the needle and thread that I'll be sewing with, starting with 2 strands of thread cut approximately 18 inches in length. I'm going to thread both of these strands through my needle. So using my needle threader, I'm going to insert this through the eye of the needle, followed by thread, pulling it through. That's one of my strands threaded. And I'll do the same with my second strand of thread. So now I will have making sure that all of the lengths of thread are even. I'm going to tie a knot through all 4 of my thread strands. Now that I've made them even, I'll go ahead and cut off the end, and I'll tie a knot. So this is the thread that I'll be working with in sewing my blanket stitch. To begin my blanket stitch, I'm going to take my needle between the front layer of felt, the top layer of felt, and this is going to make sure that my knot is in between, it's sandwiched in between the top layer and the back layer of felt. So right now my thread is only going through my top layer. I'm going to loop my thread and I'll hold it down with my thumb. I like anchoring my thread over my index finger. It helps give some tension. And then I'll take my thread my needle about a half an inch over, and I'll pull through, and it creates this looping effect. And I'll repeat, looping the thread over, my index finger holding it with my thumb. I'll come up about a half inch and pull all the way through. Loop over, secure with your thumb, over about another half inch, and I'll repeat this all the way to the end, creating the blanket stitch. This blanket stitch is used to finish the edge of thick fabrics like felt and fleece, and it creates a nice, pretty, decorative finish. So I'll continue working my blanket stitch all the way to the end of this row. Now that I've made it almost to the corner, I want to show you how we will attack the corner. So this last stitch that I made, I'm going to go right back inside of it and coming over the corner, pull through, creating my loop. And then I'll come back inside where I left off in the same place as I turn this corner. And it creates a nice little angled stitch. I'm noticing now that my thread is getting a little short, so I think I'm going to go ahead and knot off my thread here by going along the top edge of the felt. Where I see my loop, I'll go ahead and put my needle through, tying a knot in that place. And then I'll take that tail back through, where I'll cut my thread. Now I have another needle ready to start. To continue where I left off, I'm going to enter where I made my last stitch almost like I'm retracing my steps. I'm going to catch the knot that I made, and then I'll continue in the same method, making my loop over my index finger, holding my thread strand down with my thumb, moving over about 1/2 inch. I'll come back up through the work. Again, making a loop over my index finger, holding my thread down with my thumb, coming over about 1/2 inch. And I'll continue working my blanket stitch in this manner. If my thread runs short, I'll go ahead and knot at the top and then pick up my stitch where I left off. I'll continue the blanket stitch all the way around this piece of felt. So I've been working on my square and I'm almost at the final corner. So what I'm going to do is start where I began, or finish where I began, by inserting my thread through the same point. So I make my loop, holding down my thread with my thumb. I'll insert it at the same point, pulling up one more time in the same point, so for my final stitch, what I'm going to make sure that I do is pull along that top thread and secure it with my knot by going in, making that loop and taking my thread through. And now I have my corner piece complete, and I'll take it back down into the work, where I will pull it a little extra tight to cut, but this will make sure that my thread strands are still sandwiched in between the work. And that is my completed square for my blanket stitch.